Environmental Sensing in the City, Part 3 of 5, based on McCullough's 2013, the book Ambient Commons. And in this chapter, McCullough's focus is on attention. His attention is on attention. And the problem that he leads off with is divided attention. And he provides this cartoon to illustrate the problem of divided attention, where Grandpa is saying, "Excuse me, young man, am I anywhere near?" "In a moment, sir. I'm on an international conference call while attending my grandmother's funeral," says the young man. And he's got a pair of what look like VR glasses on with transceivers sticking out of them. And evidently everyone else is wearing VR glasses with transceivers so they don't have to be bothered with their physical surroundings. So this is, of course, a theme that pervades this entire book. And you've probably seen jokes or scenarios like this before. For example, there's a related movie bit where someone believes they're being addressed only to discover that they're actually overhearing half of a smartphone conversation. So it's a very common trope today. Attention can be paid, attention can be fragmented, attention can be stolen, attention can be restored. But most writing about attention has been in the age since electrification, when the opportunities for dividing attention blossomed. So, for example, here we see a photograph from 1925 of setting a watch by the radio, and it illustrates the issue of technological distraction since the age of electrification, an issue that has only mushroomed that has consistently grown, but has mushroomed in the age of the smartphone. FOMO stands for fear of missing out, and that has led people to open up more communication channels and at the same time to take fewer actions that would disrupt the vigilance of attention to these more and more communication channels. I think you can probably see this in a lot in daily life. I certainly feel that I can. Continuous partial attention is what design strategist Linda Stone calls the vigilance of attention that arises from FOMO, fear of missing out. She says that it is not quite like multitasking, and that the central phenomenon here is not information overload, but information overconsumption, which is an important distinction. William James, who is pictured here, described attention, I think, very well as focus plus periphery. I think that's a fantastic description of attention, focus plus periphery, although it's been superseded by contemporary cognitive science. James also made the extremely interesting observation, and one that puts attention in a really central role, that the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. I think that's a really pithy quote. Selective may be the most frequently used adjective with attention. And James implies that selective attention is voluntary and that it can be maintained and that it can be filtered and owned. But that's increasingly difficult today. The increasing number of technological distractions are perhaps standing in our way. But that's not all that's standing in our way. So selective attention has an evil twin called inattentional blindness. And in a famous experiment, participants watch a video. And by the way, you can see a lot of, if you look on YouTube for Invisible Gorilla, you'll see a lot of videos exemplifying this experiment. Participants watch a video of a team dressed in white and a team dressed in black playing basketball. And they're asked to carefully count the white team's passes, but to carefully avoid counting the passes of the black team. And in the middle of the video, a person wearing a gorilla suit walks between the players, quite obviously. But participants who have been trying to count the passes afterwards swear that they did not see anything out of the ordinary. And even when they're shown the video and actually see the gorilla for the first time, they'll insist often that the video has somehow been rigged, that there really was no gorilla there the first time that they saw the video. And this phenomenon has been labeled inattentional blindness. And it's related to priming, which is the phenomenon that you see what you're looking for more quickly than something that you aren't looking for. And cognitive scientists think about some aspects of attention as resource allocation, and they think of gatekeeping as a role played at every level of attention. Thus, cognitive scientists are still learning about the role that artifacts play in attention, as illustrated by Feynman's claim that his notes were not a record of his thought, but rather a component of his thought. His notes weren't a record of his thought, but were a component of his thought. Cognitive scientists are just learning about bottlenecks in processing, and only recently started making claims like that of David Meyer, who analyzes the switching costs involved in attempted multitasking and concludes that multitasking doesn't really exist. Let me conclude with a quote from William James: "The marksman sees the bird, and before he knows it, he has aimed and shot." And I think this quote illustrates the notion that not all matters of attention rise to the level of conscious thought. And this quote, in fact, ends the chapter. And McCullough provides this summary of the chapter. The main idea being that there are many kinds of attention, and that not all kinds of attention are a foreground deliberative focus. There are other kinds of attention as well. The counterargument is selective attention. The key terms, resource allocation and adaptation. And what has changed and what is changing as we speak is the cognitive science of attention, which is making great strides. The catalyst for this is the costs of multitasking, or I should perhaps say the costs of attempted multitasking. The related field that underlies this chapter is cognitive neuroscience. And the open debate is whether or not there are such things as digital natives. There is a lot of claim that we have digital natives who are different from their predecessors, but there is both evidence that they do exist and that they do differ from their predecessors. There's also plenty of evidence that they don't. Plenty of evidence in cognitive science that people today don't differ from their predecessors at all. So that brings us to the end of Chapter 3 of the 5 chapters in the first part of this book. And I thank you for your attention to this micro lecture on attention, and invite you to join me for the next one, which I think is embodiment. I look forward to talking to you again.